Hello, this is Christina Barton. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barton. Today we're going to be talking about this thread that Mark Cuban did on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And he doesn't seem to understand, especially the equity part. So him and Elon went back and forth a little bit. So I wanted to draw a highlight to that. Also, Mayor Eric Adams in New York, we know that he's been going through it with trying to deal with all the migrants coming into New York City. So his grand solution is to sue the buses that are bringing them in, which is I would think would be a very frivolous lawsuit, but I think there's there's a bit of logic to his madness. But we all know that trying to just pressure Democrats to do the right thing as far as stopping the flow of all these people coming in would be the best thing for everyone. But they want to play their games. So we'll discuss that. Also, some different highlights from Nikki Haley had a town hall. Ron DeSantis had a town hall. And Nikki Haley was asked about her question when she dissed Iowa, which we talked about that yesterday, but she was made to answer for that. And DeSantis had some good rebuttals to some gotchas. Vivek had apparently, at least I'm hearing everyone said that he just really schooled Dasha. Can't think of her last name, but Dasha Barnes, I think. Burns, but I think it's like Dasha. I did not see that video yet. Perhaps I'll look at it and we can go through it Monday. But I mean, even people who don't like Vivek are like, okay, this is pretty awesome. So we'll probably maybe get to that on Monday. Fair warning, I'm a little under the weather. So I don't think I'll be going long at all, but just wanted to give you kind of a fair warning that I'm feeling not too great. But I guess in case there's like we'll be right back. I disappear for a little minute. But I'm feeling better than I was about like 30 minutes ago. I was really contemplating not having a show today, but we shall press forward. Anyway, before I jump into it, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, drop in your email on the email list, check out different content, like different videos, different articles, etc. See where you can follow me all across my different social media platforms. There should be links in the description of watching on Facebook, or if you're watching on YouTube, for the TikToks and Facebook and YouTubes and website, like everywhere you can basically find me. Check out different merch that we have available at the store as well, like mugs and t-shirts and other things like that. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website. It does cost to stream and run my website and all those things. So if you guys can support in that way, I do appreciate it. If you're watching on Facebook, you guys can send stars. If you're watching on YouTube, you guys can send super chats. Shout out to everyone who's watching live and everyone who will watch back later. So always appreciate it. Happy Friday, getting to the weekend. I remember actually like teaching tonight at church, so I'm glad I'm feeling a bit better, but it just kind of sucks. But anyway, something happened last night on TikTok. Somebody commented on a video that I made a while ago about, the video wasn't about Dylan Mulvaney per se. It was about, I made the video because of there was a video of Dylan, or it wasn't a video of Dylan. He just had he was on a cover of some magazine, and I thought it looked kind of creepy. And so I think that's all I mentioned. And then someone replied back to me, and it was a white guy. I think he was gay. And then he just kind of tried to throw the black card at me, like, oh, as a black woman or minorities should stick together, minorities shouldn't be speaking out, or etc. blah blah blah. So I replied to him, but then I made a TikTok about this guy, and I'm just like, stop trying to compare being black to being trans, to being gay. Lots of different groups have different struggles or have had historically different struggles. That doesn't mean all the struggles are the same. People can relate to different struggles, but they're still not the same. How you can be gay or straight and choose to live a celibate life. No one could even, you don't have, that's, it's not something that you have to mention at all. It's how you choose to act out your sexual desires just isn't the same as me just existing and being a black person. I've never been, I don't think anyone's ever mistaken me for any other race besides maybe when I was in the Philippines. They thought I did look Filipino, but I was quite tall. So not everything kind of added up there. It's not the same. Um, so I had did a video, and then some other people replied to in those comments, and then it turned into other video replies on those comments. But it ended up with two young black women. One was 18, one was 19, and they were saying they kind of didn't understand my issue with Dylan. And I mentioned, well, I'm like, it literally has called or said that it needs to be criminalized if people write stories about him and use he, him pronouns and stuff. And I'm like, do you really think that stuff is kind of this, that's good? And so they're like, essentially they said that if someone called me the N-word then that would be the same. If you called someone a racial slur, that's the same as calling Dylan Mulvaney a man. And these were two young black women telling me this. And I just was floored on how do we get to this point? Because I'm like, because they try to do the comparison as well, like minorities this and trans people that. And I'm like, if you think those things are the same, then you have a skewed perception of the plight of the trans person and an underestimation of the plight of minority groups historically. And I'm not someone who's like always trying to like tote the past and upplay, sins of the past or anything like that. That's not really my, I guess, brand or whatever. But they're saying something truthful about someone is not the same as saying something that's a derogatory term where you really mean to have malice. And they're like, well, it's different if you're trying to harass someone. And I'm like, well, but your definition of harassment is just me literally saying something that's true that you don't like. And it was just so amazing to me that these young black women were saying this. And I wonder where they got that from. Because I suppose online, friends, the culture, I just can't imagine like their parents who could be, I guess my age, maybe older. Depends, what kind of stuff their parents were doing. But maybe a bit older. Maybe. I don't know. They really could be my age. But I just can't imagine people who are like millennials, older millennials, or not Gen Z, Gen X, or boomers saying stuff like, yeah, it's totally, and I'm talking about like black boomers and saying that kind of stuff, saying, yeah, it's totally comparable to calling a man if he wants to be called a woman. Like, that's not any, maybe I'm wrong and their parents are really woke. I'm assuming here, but I guess my assumption is that the culture is just so bad that it's capturing these youths here. So it's disturbing. It's disturbing. Really disturbing to me. And I can't say it's totally surprising, but it is disturbing nonetheless. I'm like, they are so just devoted to having that be the top rung on the like oppression Olympics, where everyone else has to bow down and capitulate to this. And it weirds me out that it wouldn't be as big as it is if not for young women willing to take the L in life. They're so upset when the patriarchy comes for them, but if the patriarchy wears a dress, then it's all fine and dandy. And they even said comments about white oppression, blah blah blah. And I'm just like, Dylan Mulvaney is a white man, and because he puts on makeup and wears a dress, he's just no longer part of the patriarchy. He's just part of the oppressed class. Okay, okay, and one other thing I'll say before moving on to the actual content of the day. They said you just don't want trans people to exist. You just don't want them to exist. And what is this? What is this supposed to mean? Like, do I want to, like, Thanos snap them out of existence? No. Do I want harm to come upon anyone? No, of course not. Do I wish that they had been like aborted or something? That doesn't exist. Someone that just, it's just murder. But so no, I don't want them to not exist in a sense of I want to destroy the person that's there. But do I wish they weren't trans? Do I wish that they were healthy and had and their self-identification correlated to their body, so they didn't have to feel like they have to chop off a dick to be who they're supposed to be? Of course, I wish that on these people. My question is, why doesn't everyone else? Why wouldn't we want that for everyone? I don't want people to feel like they have to torture and drug their bodies to belong. Of course, I don't want this to exist. I don't want gender dysphoria to exist. I want these people to exist, but I wish them health and happiness, and not a coping of. So to those people, next time someone says that, because I'm sure you guys have probably heard that, you don't want them to exist. I want them to be well. And if they were well, they wouldn't exist as trans people. They would just be themselves, living as men or women. That's not a crazy thing to want. That is not a crazy thing to want. I don't want schizophrenic people to be schizophrenic. I don't want, I wish no ill will toward people with chemical imbalances. I wish they didn't have an imbalance. That's not a terrible thing to say. But life is what it is. But yeah, I wish people were well. But I don't expect you to make me go along with a charade. That's where the line has to stop. And I don't think being dishonest with people to fulfill their self-image is kind. I think it's not kind, and I also find it to be immoral. So I'll keep my hard line in the sand, and you can call me mean, you can call me homophobic, transphobic, whatever. It doesn't hurt my feelings. It really doesn't hurt my feelings. So anyway, let's move on. I want to start off with Mayor Adams making this announcement. Again, you guys know how bad the border situation is. You know that Abbott decided to share some of the load and bring people to these sanctuary cities that have professed that, that these people should come in, and that people, we shouldn't be making a fuss. Do you guys remember back in the day when Trump was president, and people would complain about people coming across the border and all that stuff, and people would say, we have to accept people. That's our way. Look at the Statue of Liberty. Not any laws, just look at the Statue of Liberty. So we have to let people in because of the Statue of Liberty. So now in New York City, they're like, we've had enough. You guys can't keep sending these people here. And they point the finger at Abbott, and they say, oh, it's so humane. Now they've begged for help federally. They want money and funds and stuff, and but they're tapped out. And they also called for other people to share in the burden. You could just kind of wake up, realize that your policies and your way of life is kind of stupid. Not kind of stupid, they are stupid. And that we need to genuinely do something to stop the influx of people coming in. at the border, secure the border, and deport people as well, because we're sending a lot of people out today, as opposed to like maybe they come to their hearing in 7 years. It'll disincentivize people from trying to make the trip over. So we could go that route. We absolutely could go that route, but that's not the route that they want to go. The route that they want to go, apparently now, is to sue the buses that are bringing in people. So we're gonna watch this video from the mayor and go from there.
New York City has and will continue to do our part to manage this humanitarian crisis. But we cannot bear the cost of reckless political ploys from the state of Texas alone. Today, our administration filed a lawsuit against 17 companies that have taken part in Texas Governor Greg Abbott's scheme to transport tens of thousands of migrants to New York City in an attempt to overwhelm our social services system. These companies have violated state law by not paying the cost of caring for these migrants. And that's why we are suing to recoup approximately $700 million already spent to care for migrants bused here in the last 2 years by the state of Texas. Governor Abbott's continuing use of migrants as political pawns is not only chaotic and inhumane, but makes clear he puts politics over people. Today's lawsuit should serve as a warning to all those who break the law in this way.
So, you are the sanctuary city, correct? If you don't want to take care of these people coming in at the border, like, why should only these little border towns? Texas is a huge place, but there's big cities and there's small towns, and not all these places have the resources and the budgets that New York does. Not everybody has the senator from New York being the majority Senate leader who can beg and barter and get a bunch of money for their state or whatnot, or there's the city. So you you want this to happen, or you claim that you want all this to happen. These people come in and it's so mean when we don't let them, and it's so mean when we build walls, it's so mean, etc. So when someone forces you to live by your own ethic, if someone forces you to live by that ethic, then you cry. You could be a man. And just say, you know what? We really need to rethink our policies. We need to make adjustments. The reason why Abbott picked New York, why he picked Chicago, is because you talk a lot of crap. Your ideology, you're talking a lot of crap. Here is your opportunity to live up to your ethics, and you can't do it. Because liberal ideas, they're so fun, they're so wonderful in the lollipop world. But one of these days, economics is going to hit you in the freaking face. Reality is going to hit you in the freaking face. And you're upset that someone bust reality to you to hit you in the freaking face. So deal with it. Absolutely deal with it. Now, this lawsuit, will it go in New York's favor? I don't imagine that it would. I imagine the purpose of it is to stop the flow, is to slow up compliance with the buses that would take people there or whatever. It's funny, before I realized that this had come out, that people were limiting the buses or not letting them in or whatever. So they just dropped them off in like New Jersey, like near like a terminal that would just take them into New York City. Which New York City is expensive to stay there anyway. So when I went to New York City for BookCon, me and my sister, now if you have the money to stay in New York, I guess I would recommend doing that, because it was a bit of a hassle, but we would we stayed in New Jersey, and then we would go to the bus station and then just take the not the bus, but the like the subway, and take the subway in there. And then we would just walk from the subway to the Jadwood Center, and and we did that. We were there for like a week, I think, because at first, like, they had the expo for Book Expo of America or something, where like all these distributors and other folks would come, and different companies. And then that was for 3-4 days or something. In the last 2 days, I think, we're BookCon, or maybe just, I think there were 2 days. But yeah, it was a lot of days we're staying in New York. So adding up, it was best to stay in, I guess, in Jersey for us. But if I didn't have to do that, I would definitely try to make things a little more comfortable for me and my sister. But people find a way. People find a way. So again, if you think it's too much, which it probably is, granted, it probably is. I understand the frustration of him. I understand the frustration of the people of New York, the people of Chicago, and people who are complaining, the Democrats, in the constituent voters who are Democrats, being upset. I understand that the Democrats upset in Texas and other places, who are feeling the pressure of all this. But pointing the finger elsewhere isn't going to solve the problem. This tactic by Abbott is one of the best political tactics of recent memory. And at first, everyone's like, "Oh, this is just a gimmick. It's just a gimmick. It's just a gimmick." But now you see how making all these people live with what they advocate for is unsustainable. They see that it's unsustainable. So they, instead of admitting that, they're trying to make the problem go away and just shift it back elsewhere, so they don't have to take responsibility for their worldview. We shouldn't let them pass the ball to anyone else. We shouldn't let them. Abbott shouldn't have to keep sending people to different cities and different states. He shouldn't have to do that. But the border should be secure. People should have to legally ask to come in. And I hope these people who are like, we have a statue in New York, who we should let people. No, that's not how things work. And I think it's funny that where the statue lives, those people, they don't want them to come in, because they see how much of a burden it really truly is. So cry me a river. Cry me a river. So it just goes back to that, I suppose. You just got to deal with the bed that you've made. Anyway, let's move on. I want to show this clip from this town hall that DeSantis had, and then I want to show this one from with Nikki Haley. So there was a gotcha question, and I think that this that someone tried to ask with him, and he handled it very well. And I think he did address this at the last debate, when as far as like immigration, because he would say things like, "We're going to shoot people dead." I'm like, that sounds pretty intense to people. And so he explained it more in depth at the last debate that they had. But someone, asked again at this town hall, and DeSantis handled it very well. So I think if it was meant to like stump him, I think it was a necessary sort of policy moment for DeSantis. So here we go.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Let me zoom that out for you guys.
Governor, almost all illegal migrants crossing the border carry a backpack or bag, and very few are cartel members. If you order to shoot on sight, now accepting women and children, how many innocent people are you willing to have killed to kill one low-level drug mule?
Well, Joseph, thanks for that. But I take issue with the premise of that. When you're conducting military operations, you're not just doing that willy-nilly. I'm the only one running for president that actually has served overseas in a war in the Iraq campaign. They didn't wear uniforms. You had to positively identify. People would have hostile actions, hostile intent, and then you would be able to engage. So it's going to be the same type of thing. It's not going to be, and it's anything like we do even domestically when a police officer would engage. So it's not going to be done the way the media is saying it's going to be done. But I will tell you this, I've been down there. the cartel will cut holes in the actual border wall, and they will come through with fentanyl. So my question to you and to other critics who don't say, how many fentanyl deaths are enough? Are we just supposed to sit here and let this happen? I think a president not only has a right, I think you have a responsibility to fight back against these people. I am sick and tired of seeing the carnage in this country. And in my travels through Iowa, I've met angel parents, people that have lost kids to fentanyl overdose. And a lot of times, these are not drug addicts. These are maybe a college student that is stressed out during exams, so they buy a pill thinking it's going to help them get through the night, and it turns out it's laced with fentanyl. That could be enough to poison that student to death. And so this is shattering families. It's shattering communities. The people in DC, they just shrug their shoulder. They could care less about what's going on. Well, I care about this. I care about defending American communities and American families. And so, yes, they have killed more Americans than all the terrorist groups in this world combined over the last 5 years. When is enough enough?
But you do.
So she starts asking another question, but this clip doesn't contain it. So that was a great answer. A great answer. Asked with the gotcha, like how many innocent people are you willing to kill? How many innocent people are you willing to let die? Is a better question. And he asked it, and he didn't give them time to actually respond to that. He just went on and finished it. But it's a good thing to consider. Like, when is enough or is enough? And they do have a duty to protect the citizens of the United States of America, and obviously keep people from breaking the law and coming over, but also these criminals who have this ill intent from continuing spreading their poison around. Besides, like, all the trafficking and other stuff that they're doing, they are responsible for people who are dying. Parents out there, you better have some conversations with your kids. Taking any sort of drug today, you don't know what it might be laced with. And as he said, it might be a situation where, I don't know, maybe it's like the pressure's getting to them and they want to just relax a little bit, or I don't know, maybe someone convinces them to do something, and it could be the first time they ever try something, and they're out and done and gone, and you have to mourn them. So I know parents have a lot of conversations with their kids about drugs and other stuff. I mean, I don't know how intense it is nowadays compared to how it used to be back in the day when you had DARE and other sorts of movements, but like, this is serious. It's really serious. So that was a really great answer with DeSantis, contrasting that with Nikki Haley here, who was asked to explain her comments when she was in New Hampshire, which they'll explain in this clip here.
So, Ambassador, I want to ask you about something you said at a town hall in New Hampshire. You talk about the importance of New Hampshire and Iowa. We're here in Iowa. But you said about the primary process that while Iowa goes first, New Hampshire, quote, corrects it. Oh, my gosh. Ron DeSantis said that was incredibly disrespectful to Iowans.
Of course he did.
And of course, we are here in Iowa. I'm just looking around at people's faces. Okay, so is there anything else you'd like to say?
Look, we have done 150 plus town halls. You got to have some fun too. So we're at this town hall. We had 700 people in New Hampshire. We're cutting up. And yes, I said that. But keep in mind, I'm from an early state. South Carolina always knew that I was going to be the first caucus. New Hampshire is going to be first in the nation. And South Carolina wanted to be first in the South. It was a pact. It's still a pact that the three states, at least on the Republican side, had, that we were going to keep that. But we banter against each other on different things. New Hampshire makes fun of Iowa. Iowa makes fun of South Carolina. It's what we do. So, I mean, I think the problem in politics now is it's just like too serious and too dramatic. If we're having fun, I don't live, eat, and breathe politics all the time. I like to have fun too. And so if I'm hanging out with 700 people and we're trying to make jokes and have a good time, like, you should be able to do that without
reflect the lack.
So if you watched yesterday, you'll recall that I compared this to when Joe Biden went to go talk to some Hispanics and decided to bring up black people and insulted black people in order to relate to the Hispanic people. And it was like, unlike the African American community, you guys have incredibly diverse thoughts. And I'm pretty sure that was what he said. It was, or pretty close to it. And then he said something else as well that was pretty similar. So that was very offensive. And I mentioned how people sometimes think the way to, I don't know, get ahead with someone else is to put some other people down. So she could say that Iowa makes fun of New Hampshire, and New Hampshire makes fun of South Carolina, and so on. And you know what? State rivalries, I get it. Michigan, Ohio. But the problem here is that she's not from New Hampshire. She's not from Iowa. And she's and I'm not, even if she were, it's still not wise considering that you're trying to win the votes of the people of Iowa. So she's in this room, she was booed a little bit, and I didn't see people's faces, but Aaron said that people were making faces. If your response is, hey, we're just making fun, it's all in good fun. People, but her comment was that the other states are going to correct the mistakes of Iowa or something along those lines. So if that's the case, she's expecting that they will probably make the wrong decision, and it's up to everyone else to make what they decided irrelevant. So there's really no cleaning that up. She could try and be like, I just want to have fun. We can't do politics all the time. Well, you're running for president, and you're talking like at a town hall or meeting or whatever, meet and greet. So you're on the campaign trail. You can joke and stuff. But trash in Iowa, because that's what it was. That's what it was. So that's a really lame excuse. And you know what? To compare it to Biden again, when Biden was confronted about the "you ain't black" comment with Charlemagne, when he said that on the Breakfast Club, he was like, "Oh, we were joking around." But if you go back and watch that, Charlemagne wasn't joking around. He said, "We're looking forward to having you come back and answer more questions." And he's like, I'll tell you what, if you need more questions, if you have trouble deciding between me and Trump, then you ain't black. And then he smiled and kind of waited for you're so right, Joe Biden, you're so right. And Charlemagne's like, no, it's not about that. It's about me deciding what's best for my community. And then Joe Biden proceeded to continue smiling, but then lie about his record to be like, come on, like, I'm the better choice or whatever. But trying to affirm that with a bunch of lies. So Joe Biden just tried to say, oh, we're joking and kidding around. And maybe he was kidding around, but that doesn't mean what you said wasn't offensive. Just because it's a joke doesn't mean it's not offensive. And jokes, they can have humor attached to it. But that doesn't mean that there's not the truth that they're trying to like emulate. It doesn't mean that we can just dismiss that. So just because you were kidding around and poking fun at Iowa doesn't mean that it somehow erases the fact that you think that they're probably not going to vote for you and that you feel that that's a mistake. Now, of course, you feel that that would be the wrong decision. You think that you're the best person for president. That's why you're in the race. But that's like a disagreement. You don't go out there and disrespect your voters. Because you're trying to, at the end of the day, we're in this process to honor what the people say. And that doesn't stop just because you want to kid around. So 100% states play around. There's rivalries. People poke fun. But you're poking fun at the Iowa voters. You're not just making fun of their sports team or something like that, or fried Oreos or whatever. You're poking fun at the voters and the will of the people because you think that you're going to lose. And that's what it is. Nikki Haley keeps kind of proving that she's not good at this. I don't know if anyone's in the chat is a Nikki Haley fan, but not great at this, I would say. Not in the least bit. There is a clip of Vivek going around. I already mentioned this top of the hour. I haven't looked at it, so it was really good. We'll, I guess, talk about it on Monday because they say he really gives a masterclass. He gave a really good answer the other day too about like white supremacy and stuff, but and I say that to be fair. You guys know I'm not too fond of Vivek, but but he knows how to handle the media. He does. I don't think he's always honest when he handles the media, but a lot of times he knows how to handle them. I can say that. Anyway, let's move on to Mark Cuban. So there's been a lot of talk about DEI, particularly because of Claudine Gay, who was the president of Harvard, who ended up resigning because of all these credible allegations of her plagiarizing stuff. So she stepped down, and she's still working there, still getting a big salary. So I'm sure that was the deal or whatever. So embarrassed she may be, broke she is not. So you can take that we'll still take it as a win that she's not the president anymore. But you know, she really shouldn't have a job there if she plagiarized so much stuff. It just doesn't track because you still have students there that you don't want them to plagiarize stuff and they get in trouble for it. So anyway, Mark Cuban decided to post some comments about his thoughts on DEI, especially because Elon Musk said discrimination on the basis of race, which DEI does, is literally the definition of racism. So Mark Cuban responded to that in a long thread. And to me, he doesn't quite understand what all of that really means. So we're going to go through that. So here's his tweet. And so here's Mark Cuban. I'm going to increase this size a little bit. Actually, it's a lot, but let me help you out and give you my thoughts on DEI. 1, diversity. Good businesses look where others don't to find employees that will put your business in the best possible position to succeed. You may not agree, but I take it as a given that there are people of various races, ethnicities, orientations, etc., that are regularly excluded from hiring consideration. By extending our hiring search to include them, we can find people that are more qualified. The loss of DEI phobic companies is my gain. 1A, we live in a country with very diverse demographics. In this era where trust of businesses can be hard to come by, people tend to connect more easily to people who are like them. Having a workforce that is diverse and representative of your stakeholders is good for business. And I saw someone, it was Michael Knowles. He had retweeted this whole thread. And he said, if DEI is good for business, well, why don't they do it naturally? And why is so much of it like mandatory within the hiring practices? So he's correct that not all people like determine that they want to see someone who looks like them and is representative of them. But that's something that different minority groups, like if you look at different data, do tend to feel that way at times. There are different backgrounds, etc., that you want different expertise from people to understand the different markets, what your consumers, how the consumers may feel, etc., blah blah blah. Diversity is not a bad thing. Diversity is not a bad thing in itself. The anti-white bias is a bad thing that people tend to have today, and that people feel that people will preach that diversity itself is a good thing, but they're not necessarily looking for diversity of experiences or opinions, because, you know, I think we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but if you're of the wrong sort of groupthink, then they'll want to kick you out. So if this is a all kind of spanning off of the Harvard situation, how many people from Harvard have vote Republican or conservative? You know, and that shouldn't have to be a requirement for getting you in or anything. But people have different worldviews and could offer different opinions, contrary opinions, to debate good ideas against bad ideas to see which ones went out. But we'd rather not hire particular people because of their views, etc. And in academia and other places and business and so on. And I mean, the anti-white sort of bias is how you get Coca-Cola having different trainings where they tell their people to be less white. And they describe whiteness as, just normal sort of things, like be less competent. Like, why? Don't you want competent people? Like, arrogant is one thing, but you definitely want your people to be competent. So there is an anti-white bias. And if you like are purposely aren't we not supposed to like be discriminatory, like purposely discriminatory in our hiring practices? You know? Like if you were if you were secretly looking for your store to be really diverse and like, okay, I want to make sure I hire a gay, make sure I hire black, make sure I hire like I don't think you're supposed to really openly conduct yourself in those kind of discriminatory ways. Like if positions are supposed to be open to people, they're supposed to be like open to people. Someone gave a stat the other day about these DEI positions. Many of them are filled by white people, and I'm not surprised because I guess people were mentioning it to try to debunk like DEI positions, like particularly helping minorities or having some kind of anti-white bias. But the funny thing about that is that a lot of people who are pushing the ideology are white people. The be less white stuff, that stuff they get from like white fragility. That was a white woman who wrote that. So they're cashing in on the grift, on this like self-hatred. And for some reason, minorities and other people are just kind of clapping along. But we're not creating a less racist world. We're really making the entire conversation. But the thing that he said about equity was the most crazy. Equity, treating people equally does not mean treating them the same. I made the mistake for a lot of years thinking that it did. Equity is the core principle of business. Put your employees in a position to succeed, recognize their differences, and play to their strengths wherever possible. It is not a hard concept, but it is not easy to implement. Most workforces don't have the depth of management to do this well. When it's not done well, it can create tension and resentment. Yeah, I wouldn't define equity in that sort of way. Like playing to people's strengths isn't what equity is. Equity is gerrymandering or rigging the system, picking winners and losers to get particular sort of outcomes. And I'll give you an example of that when we're done. Let's keep going. Inclusion. One of my favorite sayings is great employees reduce the stress of those around them. Great companies create environments that reduce unnecessary stress for their employees. I'm not taking a hitting quota or getting the product out of the door stress, which in turn increases productivity. This is what inclusion is all about, making all employees, no matter who they are or how they see themselves, feel comfortable in their environment and able to do their jobs. Why DEI is like healthcare. One of the lessons I've learned in healthcare is that most CEOs don't know and don't really want to know where their healthcare benefit dollars are going in their minds. It's not part of the core competency of their business. As a result, they waste a bleep a load of money on less than quality care for their employees. And more often than not, it's their sickest and lowest paid employees that subsidize the rebates and deductibles. Sicker employees have to pay up to their deductible, healthy don't. So what does this have to do with DEI? Like healthcare, DEI is not seen as a core competency in most companies. It's just a huge expense. Intellectually, they see the benefit of DEI, but they don't have the time to focus on it. So it turns into a checkbox that they hope they don't have to deal with beyond having HR do the report and board and legal tells them they are covered, when anything that impacts all of your employees is pretty much a checklist item to the CEO. There's a good chance that is not going to work well, and you are going to have employees who are not comfortable for a lot of different reasons, which is in turn creates resentment towards DI policies and training, which in turn makes it harder on the managers trying to implement it. When companies do DI well, you see a well-run, successful company. So he's admitting there's issues with how things are implemented with it. So what's the conclusion? If you don't think there is a need for DEI and it doesn't create a competitive advantage for your company, just look at X's post replies, quotes below. There are the same people that work for you or are coworkers. Everyone is entitled to their point of view, but these same feelings, even if they are not said out loud, are heard loud and clear at work. So, Elon Musk did respond to Mark, and he said, cool. He said, so cool. When can we expect to see a short, white, Asian woman on the maps? And then he posted an article with Brittany Griner, who is not short, not a short white Asian, to say that I guess he believes in diversity when give her, a chance or is open to it. But in the article, Mark says, if she's the best on board, I will take her. So, equal opportunity, which is the example that he actually gave, is not the same as equity. It's a big misunderstanding there. So with equity, let's say you have a quota, like you're determined with this ideology to have the specification or whatever that Elon gave of like having a short white Asian woman on the team or just a woman or whatever. And so she's not going to be the best among a team of guys. It's just the truth, just the facts. Unless you got some really crappy dudes. So she's not going to be the best. So she's not going to be able to get there on merit. She's not going to be able to get there on merit. But let's say for the sake of diversity and all people being included, that they want this quota to be filled. So perhaps someone who is better for someone who would be better for the role, they get the X and they can't get on the team because they have to make a spot for her. So they make special concessions to get her in. Or let's say that every team has a quota or whatever, and they have to start including women or whatever. And they want to make sure that the women have at an equal time, or they start adjusting like the points or whatever, so they can score as much as the dudes, or they start changing everything just to complement this diversity sort of quota so they can have a particular set of outcomes. That's what equity is, not deciding that you would give a woman a chance who is going to fall flat on her feet, but you say that you would for the sake of PR or whatever, when you know how the story is going to end. You know how the story's going to end. So you look like a good guy. You look like you're a little feminist. But the truth is, we know how the story will end. That she wouldn't be good enough on a man's team. Because men and women are different. Men and women are different. It's just like in the military where there's different quotas with men and women, that they just decided to start kind of bringing down different requirements that people had to meet with their different exercises or whatever, so the women could pass or get these higher markings. So if you got to start changing everything around just to accommodate different folks who can't meet the standard, that's not equality. That would be more like equity. That would be more like equity, like trying to get rid of, all the SATs and other stuff like that, or different states getting rid of different math reading requirements or whatever because they want people of particular ethnicities to be able to pass more instead of trying to solve the problem with seeing why people aren't doing well. Like he mentioned, like there's some people in business who you put in different, that you don't treat everyone the same. And that's true. You don't treat everyone the same. You do meet people where they're at, but when you are willing to disadvantage the whole entire system in order to meet a goal, that's where it's more like equity. You could, someone, maybe the circumstances, like in a school where maybe there's a black family or something, they are down on income, maybe it's a single mother household or whatever, like dig in there, find out why they need some more help compared to, I don't know, that Asian kid. That's fine. But it's not equity to say like, hey, let's give them some extra help as opposed to this other person over here. Equity, the thing that we're concerned about that we see play out is that we're just going to scrap standards so they can skate by. That's the problem. So he's morphing these words to be tolerable in people's minds when the truth is that's not how these things play out. If they played out to what he was kind of suggesting, it would be okay. But that's not what diversity and equity and inclusion is. And Colin writes that the most successful con of DEI was convincing people that equity means treating people equally. No, Mark, equity means equal outcomes, and achieving it therefore requires treating people equally based on the race or other immutable characteristics. You're being duped. And then it's an issue of like, he said you treat people differently at work. Well, you don't treat them differently because of their race. You may treat them differently based on their skill level or based on their knowledge, based on their experience, based on their potential. But when you say that these group of individuals who have more melanin in their skin need to be treated differently, and you make that kind of baked in assumption because of systemic this, that, etc., that's where you get into equity, and that's where what people are against. So I hope that makes sense. But yeah, Mark Cuban is duped there. But he explains things in a way that a lot of people jive with. Someone was like, and if he wants to be president, he could probably put up a good fight. But hopefully that it doesn't come to that one day. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. You guys can go to blacktnews.com/donate. It does cost a stream and run my website and all that stuff so you guys can support. I do appreciate it. Check out different merch at the store. I did mention Joe Biden, some of his racist past, which I guess you could say it's a present phenomenon, but I did make this shirt that has a list of some of his racism stuff on the back with in the front says denounce white supremacy, defeat Joe Biden. So that's one of the shirts that I have. I also have it in long sleeve, and I got other stuff that you guys can check out at the website. Check out some of my books that I've written. I have 17 altogether. 2 are nonfiction. The rest are fiction. I write from like children's middle grade chapter books and, go into like new adult. I have like historical fiction, fantasy books, paranormal romance, action adventure, all kinds of stuff. And one of my nonfiction books is, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion, which is available on Barnes & Noble and on Amazon. You can get it in paperback, or you guys can get it in ebook. Thank you guys so much, and I hope that you guys enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you on Monday.